For our oceanography project, we were told to present information about fixed nitrogen and nitrogen footprints to the public. We chose to present the information to Boston University students and video their responses to each question we posed. Here are some of the videos we got. So fixed nitrogen. The Haber-Bosch process is a way to synthetically produce fixed nitrogen to be able to be used in fertilizer transportation needs such as like fuel and everything. Just basic household chemicals like ammonia to help heat your house and for many goods and services, especially travel, along with like the cleaning supplies. They all use fixed nitrogen. And like carbon, when released into the air in large quantities, the fixed nitrogen can actually affect the atmosphere in negative ways, like the ozone layer. It's like greenhouse gas, much like carbon dioxide and monoxide, causing things like the acid rain, greenhouse gases, ozone depletion, and smog. So based off of a carbon footprint, do you know what a nitrogen footprint would be?
How much nitrogen is like sustainable for one person is one footprint, or is sustainable for the Earth, one person. Yeah, same thing but with nitrogen. Yeah.
So your nitrogen footprint, what would you think influences it the most?
So that would be like use of products that need fixed nitrogen. Would be something that influences it.
That is like it leads into that sort of like. Food actually, the food you eat is the most, it causes the most fixed nitrogen to be put back into the environment.
Okay, so it's good or bad?
That is bad when you look at it like when used as a fertilizer.
Okay.
On farms to make like the vegetables and the like food for the cows and everything. It can run off into rivers and cause harmful algal blooms. So what would you believe is a way to help reduce?
By organically grown food, is that correct? Like
yes.
Locally grown, yeah.
And that is it. Do you now know more about fixed nitrogen?
I do.
Thank you very much, Brady Moses.
Thank you, Bill.
Alright, so what's your name?
My name is Amber Walsh.
Alright, Amber Walsh. What we're going to be discussing today is nitrogen. So shut up, Bill. I don't like. Okay. So, would you happen to know what fixed nitrogen is?
No.
No, you don't? Okay, so basically what it is if you think about like the Haber-Bosch process, it's basically where you take unreacted nitrogen, which is N2, and you're going to convert that synthetically usually into a usable form of nitrogen. So you can do that through ammonia or other chemicals as that. Okie dokie. Where it ends up usually, it can be through plenty of things. So fertilizer is one thing. Heat and gas, goods and services, transportation is another big one. So now that you know where the fixed nitrogen ends up, would you happen to know what would happen, like what the environmental effects could be if it's released in large quantities?
I would assume that they would be negative.
Yeah, usually it's pretty negative. So like, for example, fertilizer in the form of runoff. What do you think could happen? Like,
is that like running off into the ground, like into rivers and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that would pollute the water and maybe interfere with the animals?
Yeah, that's actually one thing, yeah. So like one thing, another negative, something that could happen that would be negative from that, if it's in the form of runoff and it's going into a river, for example, it can actually influence the levels of phytoplankton and algal blooms that happen, and it can tamper with the ecosystem that way as well. So what do you think, so do you know what a carbon footprint is?
Yes.
Can you explain what a carbon footprint is?
I think it is like the amount of carbon that you're like responsible for emitting into the atmosphere.
Yeah. So knowing that, do you know what a nitrogen footprint is?
The amount of nitrogen you emit.
Yep, exactly. So, do you know what things might influence your footprint the most, or?
Nitrogen or carbon?
Yeah, for nitrogen.
Is that meat?
Yeah,
Or
actually, that could
meat?
be part of it. Yeah.
Okay.
So, food consumption is definitely one of them. So, that's also mainly because of like the transportation that it would take. So, if you live in the Midwest and you eat a lot of meat, it's probably going to be you're going to have a lower nitrogen footprint because the transportation isn't going to be as much. Versus when you live like in the city, like in Boston, there's not many like beef farms around here. So
Yeah.
if you're eating a lot of beef, then the transportation that it takes to get the beef to where you're living is going to increase your nitrogen footprint. So, yep. So, do you know more now about nitrogen?
I do. I really do.
Get it, girl.
Feel good
All right,
about it.
we're good.
Monica, I'm here today to talk to you about fixed nitrogen. So basically, fixed nitrogen is when you take unreactive N2, the gas, and make it into the fixed nitrogen, which ends up becoming reactive and able to be used like chemically through a system called the Haber-Bosch process. Usually, what it ends up being used for fertilizer, fuel, household chemicals, the heating and gas, and goods and services when it's used. So, in large quantities, would you be able to guess what fixed nitrogen, like what the effects on like positive or negative would be?
I would think in large quantities it would be a negative outcome.
Yep. It can cause some pretty negative side effects actually, like acid rain, greenhouse gases, ozone depletion, and smog. Do you know what a carbon footprint is?
Is that when it's like how much humans have left like pollution on the earth, or?
Yes, actually, it's like a personal amount of how much carbon.
So like how much I'm like
Yes.
contributing to the environment.
Yeah. So, much like the carbon footprint, there's the nitrogen footprint, and it is impacted by different things such as food, housing, transportation, and your goods and services. Which one do you think actually influences the nitrogen footprint the most?
Can you repeat them again?
There's food, housing, transportation, and goods and services.
Transportation.
It's sort of close, but actually the food you eat. But because of the transportation of food, that's why it becomes so much. Like when you eat beef, it has to be transported from somewhere else because not a lot of beef or pork is up and found in the Northeast, where it would be the opposite for seafood in the Midwest. So do you feel more informed about fixed nitrogen?
I do.
Thank you, Monica, for
Yeah,
sitting with
thanks
us
for
here
informing
today.
me on this.
No problem.
So, what is your name?
My name is Julia Buckley.
Yes, Julia Buckley. Okay, so would you happen to know what fixed nitrogen is?
No.
No? Okay, that's fine. So fixed nitrogen is basically where you're going to take unreactive nitrogen, which is N2 gas, and you're going to convert that into a usable form of nitrogen. So that can be in the form of ammonia or other
Ammonia
chemicals.
cleaning stuff like.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So, and that's through the Haber-Bosch process. And some things that can also be used in like the usable forms of nitrogen is in fertilizer, heat and gas, for goods and services, and like you said, household chemicals. So when it's released into the environment in large quantities, do you think that has a positive or a negative effect?
Probably negative.
Negative, yeah, that's right. So do you know, like in certain, I guess in some ways, it can be released in the form of acid rain. It can cause greenhouse gases to increase, ozone depletion, and smog. So would you, like, do you know what a carbon footprint is?
Yes.
What is a carbon footprint?
The amount of carbon that a person releases into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Person.
Mhm. So then, what is a nitrogen footprint, do you think?
Probably the same thing. The amount of nitrogen that someone produces.
Yeah, exactly. So that can be released, well, a human's nitrogen footprint can be influenced by the food that they eat, housing, transportation, and goods and services. Do you know which one of those four is probably going to cause the largest increase in a nitrogen footprint?
Transportation.
Transportation, that's actually pretty close actually. Food is actually the largest one. but it's kind of combined with the transportation because let's say like you live in the Midwest and you're eating beef, you're probably going to have based on your food or consumption of beef anyway, you're going to have a lower nitrogen footprint because that source is closer to you,
Right.
so less transportation is needed to get it to you. Whereas if you're eating beef and you live in Boston, for example, then you're going to have like more transportation to get the beef to you. So yeah. Do you think you know more about nitrogen footprints now?
Definitely.
Yes. All right.
So hi, Alex.
Hi, Bill.
We are here today to discuss fixed nitrogen. So fixed nitrogen is basically when you take unreactive N2 gas, put it through the Haber-Bosch process, and make it into reactive nitrogen, such as ammonia, nitrate, nitrite.
Some ions, though.
Yeah, basically. And it usually would end up in fertilizer, transportation, fuel, household chemicals, ammonia, the heat and gas, again, fuel for your house, and then many goods and services are needed. When it's released into the air in large quantities or into the ocean through runoff, what do you think the effects would be, like negative or positive?
Well, obviously negative if we're being interviewed about this.
Yes, and some of the effects that occur can be acid rain, greenhouse gases, ozone depletion, smog, and harmful algal blooms in a closed environment, an ecosystem, which is much like the carbon. So, do you know what a carbon footprint is?
I do.
Can you explain?
Well, it's like the amount of carbon that we emit personally.
Yes, and knowing that, what do you think the nitrogen footprint is?
The same thing with nitrogen.
Basically. So what do you think influences your nitrogen footprint the most?
Like my involvement with it, or just
Like what you do?
Well, I know that a lot of eating processes can emit nitrogen, just carbon does too, but you have to do that. I guess maybe some stuff with vehicles might. You talked about cleaning products. You talked about, well, not me personally, I don't like farm or anything, but like fertilizers for planting and things like that.
Yeah, those are all things. And actually food influences the nitrogen footprint the most because it's the transportation of the products to wherever you live, such as since we live in Boston right now, if you wanted meat or many of your pork products, you would have to transport it from other areas like the Midwest to here. Thank you very much. Do you think you know more about fixed nitrogen now?
Thank you for this lesson, Bill.
No problem. Go and spread the good news.
Nitrogen!
Alright, hi Eric.
Hi, Madison.
Do you know what fixed nitrogen is?
No.
No? That's okay. We're gonna teach you. So fixed nitrogen is where you take N2 gas, which is an unreactive form of
N2.
nitrogen. N2.
Diatomic.
Very good. You're gonna take that and convert it into a reactive form of nitrogen. So
What's that?
That can be anything from like ammonia,
Oh,
something like that. You can put it into household products.
Mhm.
You feel me?
you should feel.
Shafil. All right, good. So other things that you can put this reactive form of nitrogen in is fertilizer. You can throw it into like transportation methods, heat and gas, goods and services, and like I already said, like household
Like
products
what
as
kind
well.
of goods and services?
All kinds of goods and services.
The good goods.
The good goods.
Okay.
All right. So then, do you think when it's released into the environment, is that going to be a positive or a negative thing?
Well, you said it was in goods, so shouldn't it be good?
No, not really, not really. That's not exactly the way it works. It's going to be negative. So when
Really?
it's in, yeah, for sure.
In what ways?
All right. So let's say if N2, shut up. If nitrogen is released in large quantities into the environment, it can lead to acid rain, increasing greenhouse gases, ozone depletion. Yeah, I know, it's some pretty hard-hitting stuff, and smog. I know, it's terrifying.
Like San Francisco.
Like San Francisco, exactly.
Oh man, there's so much smog there. I hear it's like terrible.
It's awful.
There was a South Park episode about it.
Really? South Park?
Yeah.
Alright, cool.
But it wasn't about the smog, it was about the smug.
The smog, okay. Alright, so, Eric, what's a carbon footprint?
You know, how much you take like your part into like making more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, knowing that, what is a nitrogen footprint, do you think?
The same, but with nitrogen.
Very good. Yep. Okay, so... okay, so things that influence a person's nitrogen footprint include food, housing, transportation, and goods and services.
Like the foods they eat,
Yes.
and the ways they get around,
Yes.
and the goods and services they take in part of.
Yes.
Okay.
Alright, so which one of those do you think influences your nitrogen footprint the most?
This is a toughie. I really have no way of knowing myself, so it's a 33% chance I'm gonna get this right.
Just go for it. Guess.
Transportation.
Transportation. That's actually part of it. Food is actually one of the largest ways to increase your nitrogen footprint,
Really?
but it's because of the transportation. So let's say you live in Boston, like you do right now.
I do right now. I do
Mhm.
currently live in
Mhm.
Boston.
And you eat a lot of beef.
Yeah.
Getting the beef from the Midwest, because there's not a lot of like beef farms in this area.
It's a shame.
Yeah, I know, right? The transportation to get beef from the Midwest to Boston is going to cause your nitrogen footprint to increase.
You're from the Midwest.
I am from the Midwest.
Or
right?
Great Plains.
Close. Yeah. Okay.
Like,
Yeah. Okay. So do you now know more about nitrogen?
yeah.
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
Yeah. Good. All right. Thank you, Eric.
No problem.
Reducing your nitrogen footprint is pretty important. Thank you for watching our video, and we hope you learned a lot. Please go to our Facebook page and like it, or you can follow us on Twitter. Thank you.